a dangerous love affair. Can't be scared when nickels.
It's Sandra's show. Thank you.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Right then, I've got a bit of a different show today, because on today's show I've got the one and only Miles Johnston sat right in front of me. So, good evening, Miles.
And good evening to you.
And now you're going to tell me, because I'm going to knock that off. So, you're going to tell me right now all about this black goo. Well, first of all, let's have a bit of background, because you started off in pirate radio and you worked for Sky and BBC, and please tell the listeners.
Yeah, we ran a megawatt on a Kiss FM out of the Irish border way back in '88, and we had ETs and we had higher consciousness and a thing called intelligence transfer, which is all going on at that time. And that all started in the 1970s in Ireland with a massive UFO wave. But that's a big subject, and there's a connection there with Radio Caroline. And after they brought in the legislation, we all closed down and we all got, terribly sad. And I went and joined Sky TV almost the day it started. But a friend of mine said, Miles, listen, we got to start a new radio station. So we put on a new radio station called Energy 106 from the same transmitter site as we had Kiss FM on the Monaghan border. Yeah. And that gave the opportunity of pumping a 1,000,000-watt FM signal the 40-odd miles into Belfast. And we ran high-energy dance music 24 hours a day for 9 years. Problem is that the guy who asked me to do that, a mate of mine called Lawrence John, got abducted by aliens 4 times. And that brings the link between ETs, aliens, and terrestrial intelligences completely into the loop in terms of pirate radio. And that is also the time that I encountered the black goo for the first time.
Was he implanted with anything?
Yeah, Lawrence was taken, and you could actually see in his eyes, there was an energy there in his eyes where he'd actually been programmed to run the station. And a little nod and a wink from a guy at a probe conference from MI6 explained that you've got to understand, this is a pirate radio station. We're pumping out a megawatt of FM pirate unlicensed power right on the Irish border, and we're being allowed to do it. You know, you have to ask a few questions there. Yeah. Because when you have a 170-foot tower with 24 Yagi antennas on it, which are massive big things, it's not exactly something you don't notice. Yeah. Right? So it was abundantly clear. I mean, when we did Kiss FM, we Kiss 103.7, which is in the Irish era, which is part of on the underground video series of stuff I've got. A whole history of Irish pirate radio called the Irish Era is all available on my YouTube site. Megawatts 1066 on YouTube for everything I do. We snuck it. We sort of got Kiss FM on the air before anybody really realised it. I mean, we came on with a little bitty transmitter of 100 watts, and through a 12 antenna, through an 8 antenna system that gave us about.
Did it ever blow up? Oh, something like that.
We had a few occasions when the transmitters had a few issues, and that is when we discovered there was an intelligence communicating with us at the transmitters. Now, speeding on to the black goo, we noticed, or at least I noticed, and I won't say who other people noticed because we don't want to have them targeted. This is when we discovered that in the BBC transmission chain, second-hand transmitters we would get, which would mean the BBC had cycled out of decommission. We noticed that there was a black goo, a black oil in the virtual domain inside those transmitters, and the only way that we got the transmitters to work was to purge it of this black energy, this black stuff. Now, spinning on until the present day, there's another thing that we noticed in the transmitters, and that's a device It's an astral construct. It's like a spider. It's like a giant spider crab. And these things we now know, like 10 years later, are called scuttlers. And these things infest communication devices. They can also get onto your head, and these some of their legs will extend into the brain and access the pituitary gland. Because these are like in the virtual domain. But
So
this is part of a technology system which physicists and weapons specialists in the US Army have been talking about for quite a while. And this whole physics, scalar physics, the use of scalar or longitudinal waves as a weapon system for earthquakes, changing space-time, actually changing the space-time you exist in, varying the time density, and that's what's been going on near crop circles, where the people who make crop circles are given extra time to finish making the crop circle, and then when they're ready with the crop circle, local space-time springs back to normal, and suddenly you've got a crop circle there.
Because there was one that went down, and it was like 400 and odd circles.
Yeah,
it was huge.
That was man-made. All those were man-made, but the point is that when they do it, local space-time can be affected, and the circle makers also encounter the black shadow entities. And in fact, there's been a crop circle which was laid down only a few days ago, where people have actually seen one of the black shadow entities. And of course this now brings in things like the Montauk Project and the Philadelphia experiment and that kind of stuff.
I saw a film when I was a kid, and it stuck in my head for years and years.
The point about these black entities, these shadow entities, these shadow beings, and remember, I'm a former creative director of the Amash Project. The Amash Project was set up by Joanne after an idea from David Griffin from Ex-Politics here, and I was with that for 2.5 years, and we've had a big bust up, make no bones about it. It's very, very bad, it's very toxic, and there's a lot of stuff being said about what's going on since this Channel 4 program went out on air with a terrible abuse of these traumatized abductees. But that's another subject. The important thing is I was placing into context the black goo. Now the point about the black goo is it's called black goo because it's that's what it looks like.
Goo now?
There is an entry in Wikipedia which refers to an intelligent nano substance that Professor von Neumann refers to as grey goo, and that's the American spelling of grey. That's Gray, and that goes back to World War II. That goes back a long time.
But you're still talking about the same thing?
Yes.
So why is he calling it grey?
I don't know why. This the point about this is it's technically a sentient fluid. And
so what can we do with it? What can we do with this fluid?
Okay, right. In a nutshell, there's been a write-up about this in Veterans Today, which you can go up online. I don't have exactly the link, but maybe you could put it on later. But Veterans Today have actually, it's a very established online thing about for US war veterans. The thing about it is that the Falklands War involved the first full-scale use of black goo. Now, what happened was, way back in the early 1980s, there was a war in the Falkland Islands, or the Malvinas, and what was happening was that the British got word from a Spanish South American abductee that the Argentinians were operating a base on Thule Island, which is Thule. There's one in the South Atlantic, and there's one on the North Atlantic. There's one near the North Pole and one near the South Pole. Now, Thule Island is a volcanic island, and the Argentinians, it's claimed, were working with blue alien greys. The greys come in lots of shapes and sizes, and this particular breed were what's called the blue greys.
That's where Avatar comes from, isn't it?
Yeah. So the point about that is they were working with this black fluid or oil which would respond to electrical signals, but the important thing about it was they were working at it in very cold conditions in the South Pole, the Antarctic, right? Now what the Brits did was they got this, blew up the base, the special boat service and the special air service went in underground, got the base, got all that stuff, and the normal Marines, they went and took out the surface part of the base. There was for just a bunch of wooden huts on an island, there was one heck of a set of explosions.
I've seen that explosion.
Yeah. Now what we've done is we've detailed that. David Griffin came up with this report, and that's available online on Basis 17, and you can reference the black goo. Now, tying on along with that, there's other bases that we've done with an MI6 agent's son called Alistair, and he talks about what's called...
Oh, I saw it.
Yeah, and that is...
What a lovely lad.
He's talking about the sentient fluid, all right?
Yeah.
But the black goo is technically called a sentient fluid. In other words, it's a group intelligence which is known to exist in crude oil. Now, what's happening is that the British were way ahead of the curve on all this, and they gave this task, they tasked this to Marconi, and then Marconi started to develop it. But the point about British companies is they don't have the same level of infrastructure and shell-like levels of security that the American main corporations have, and a lot of the bright young scientists that they tasked with this, it's claimed, well, a lot of them started self-terminating. They really killed themselves under very complex means. Now, this is called the Marconi deaths. There's lots of them in the 1980s, and people can look that up. Now, spinning right forward to today, I've spoken to a Russian businessman who has given me a story where he claims to have personally, in Iran, the Iranians are finding that they can't refine large amounts of their oil. And what they're doing is that this oil just simply will not break down. So what they're doing is it's simply just dumping it. And what they've found is that this oil is moving about. It's like active. So this Russian businessman went down to have a look at this stuff, and the oil actually came towards him. It moved. It came out of the lake. That's where it was stored. Just nothing but this black stuff in the desert, and it just came up round him but did not touch him. And this businessman claims that he actually communicated with this stuff. It had a consciousness, it communicated with him, and the black goo said quite clearly that it is here to clean up our mess. Right?
Okay.
Now, it also communicated with him, and he then said, well, I'm going to set up some companies in England, and we're going to do environmentally friendly stuff using solar panels, whatever it is. So it then accepted he was not a threat. But it also told him that the black goo expressed to him very clearly that if it is threatened, it will respond, it will take action.
So that's why all the scientists died.
That's because the scientists, they were probing this stuff, sending electrical signals and messing about with it, and the Marconi scientists were trying to develop British super soldiers with immense intelligence and immense power and psychic powers, all sorts of things. What had happened was with the British super soldiers was it made them more intelligent, it made them more peaceful.